The existing system of rules and norms is under strain. And as we face evolving threats, the system has not evolved in turn.
I think climate change, no doubt about it. External threats coming from, let's say, adversaries, as military concept would tell you, can be shaped. The policies can be shaped. It's hard, but it is conceivable that we can shape. But the effect of climate change is not easy to change.
The challenge unfolding from climate change, and in particular the impact in a maritime-centric parts of the world like the Indo-Pacific, and certainly the immediate neighbourhood in which Australia is located, is a very significant challenge.
So for me, it would be Australia's geography, its northern approaches, but also to better study the disadvantages and the advantages Australia has on the Indian Ocean.
What keeps me up at night is the prospect of a cross-straits conflict in Taiwan, and that we are not prepared and the United States is not prepared.
We're insecure. We're frightened of abandonment, as Alan Gingell pointed out. We find it very difficult to self-affirm. We look elsewhere for people to pat us on the head.
I think for us in Europe and in Australia, a grappling with the idea that the United States will not play the kind of role it has played for the last decades is still probably the most underappreciated security threat.
Do we actually know what the future threats will be? Or are we just sort of assuming that the threats we see right now sort of have a linear evolution towards something in 20 years, whether will be the worse or better?
I think the cybersecurity risks are well appreciated in some respects, but the really existential components of them are not. Because you can just imagine if there were a regional security crisis, and as a prelude to that, as Australian systemically important network was taken out, our ability to project our power and therefore protect our interests into that regional security environment would be severely, severely impacted.
North Korea does not come up very often in the national security discourse in Australia. The reality is North Korea is continuing to build its nuclear and missile arsenal. The Ukraine war and geopolitical tensions with China have given the North Koreans a lot more latitude to cause trouble.
In light of the current geopolitical competition that's taking place, it's the development of Pacific peoples moving forward and the greater sense of identity.
I guess the risk that I would be concerned about that isn't getting enough attention, I think, is the risk of societal fragmentation, the risk that this fantastic mosaic of a country where we have people from so many different backgrounds, that entirety of Australia not pulling together in times of crisis.
I do lose sleep over the fact that Australia is not seeing our strength, and the government of the day is not tapping into the multicultural community talent that we have.
And so what we need to do is focus on education. We need to focus on cohesion, because that is the basis of our strategic morale as a country. And if morale fails, it doesn't matter what you do physically. If you don't have a will to fight and a will to stand up for who you are and your values, you can't prevail.
And so the big challenge I see is to build that greater sense of national convergence in order to protect all the good things that this country has to offer.
I think it's the pervasive and corrosive impact of misinformation and disinformation. I think it continues to erode trust in authority and in government. And without trust, or trust in a source of truth, I think it's going to become increasingly difficult to bring our population along and to prepare it for the strategic challenges ahead.
I think the increasing polarisation of our society is an issue that we're going to have to deal with eventually, to make sure again that our community is working together rather than pulling each other apart, and stay together as a group.